So last night, my wife received a text after 9 p.m. and immediately after receiving the text, she started asking me questions. And based upon the questions, I told her to call the person back that was texting her. She began to talk and she got up from the living room and went into the bedroom. And for the next, I believe, 15 minutes or so, she was helping the person she was talking to solve a very important problem. We call this putting out a fire. Now, of course, a regular fire can burn you. It's hot, there's smoke. But when there is an urgent or unexpected problem, we call that putting out a fire. So you might say the manager spent the whole morning putting out fires after the system crashed. Or you might say, I spent the next 2 hours helping my daughter put out fires because she was upset with her boyfriend. So to solve an urgent problem means to put out the fire. Now, this is what's crazy. I didn't help my wife put out that fire. I left her to herself and I allowed her to solve the problem. Another way we could say put out a fire or solve a problem that's urgent is to nip it in the bud. That's my favorite one. Okay? Nip it in the bud. So you try to solve a problem that may be small before it becomes large or before it becomes more of a problem. You nip it in the bud. So you might say, I came home from a hard day's work and I heard my children arguing, and immediately I nipped it in the bud because I wanted peace and quiet. You nip it in the bud. Or you might say good leaders nip problems in the bud instead of ignoring them. Okay. Now, I do believe there's some problems you need to ignore and let your people solve them. But when something gets out of control, a good leader will nip it in the bud. Now, let's say you have a problem that has really festered or gone on for a good while, and it has gotten worse. And the atmosphere or the situation or relationships have become bitter or sullied or people are upset. So the fire has already caused problems. One way we describe this is by saying, well, let's patch things up. Okay. So you ever had a piece of clothing or some type of garment that got a hole in it? Maybe a moth ate a hole in the cloth of your clothing and you wanted to wear it, so you had to patch the hole. Well, sometimes in order to solve a problem between people, we patch it up. Okay, so you might say after their argument, they tried to patch things up before the meeting. Or you might say the wife quickly patched things up with her husband so he could take her out on a date. Women. Oh man. Another way you could say work things out after a problem, instead of saying patch things up, you could use the phrase iron out the wrinkles. So this morning when I put my shirt on, it was wrinkled. And I took the hot iron and I ironed out the wrinkles. But when there is a problem between people and you want to resolve the problem, we call that ironing out the wrinkles. So now my shirt is straight. There are no wrinkles. Well, if you don't have problems with people, they're straight. Things are good. Things are wonderful. Things are pleasant. You have ironed out the wrinkles. So you might say to your wife, we need to iron out the wrinkles before we go on vacation. Okay? The contract looks good, you might say. Let's first iron out some wrinkles. There are some things I see in the contract that I am concerned about. And finally, one that I use often that you can also use when you are trying to resolve a problem is you may say, we need to clear the air. Okay? After the argument, we met so we could clear the air. You know, I didn't like the way you looked at me. I didn't like your tone of voice. We need to clear the air. Let's get things right. Okay, let's talk openly and remove any misunderstanding. You know, I didn't roll my eye at you. I had something in my eye. Let's clear the air. So it's amazing how our daily journey can provide us moments to speak better English. And so I wanted to take just a moment to give you a quick lesson today about ways that you can describe resolving problems that come in your life. So remember, we've done a few today. I started out with put out fires, nip it in the bud, patch things up, iron out the wrinkles, and clear the air. 5 different ways that you can go back and study and use these phrases in your English conversations. Well, if you've made it this far in today's lesson, write me a sentence down in the comment section using one of these phrases to your best ability. And if today's lesson has been a help to you, share it with a friend. And as always, I hope you join me on my next English lesson. And until then, use the links down in the description to study some of my other lessons. I hope you join me next time. I'll see you then.